Ye Diwali Muskaan Wali. Muskaan is nothing else but happiness. And in financial markets, well, the joy of happiness comes when you learn and when you earn. But first you have to learn and then earn. And in this outreach show, we've got Samir Arora. I've always called him the market maverick, but Samir is one person who's always smiling. He's brought smile on faces of millions of investors who've invested with him, globally, locally, and now with his mutual fund, his entire give back to people with a smile on their face is what we're trying to really bring out in this show. Ye Diwali Muskaan Wali, and this is our outreach program where we will be taking questions from Twitter, and we've also guests on the show. So first, thank you all for reaching out to us, and thank you both for being part of the show. So Samir, Ye Diwali Muskaan Wali.
But you're making me look all the time I want to eat. Which actually,
Coincidence hai ye to.
I've been trying to cut down.
Healthy hai, food is healthy. It's a coincidence. All the three shows we've been eating food only.
Correct.
So what gets?
So thank you so much.
But that is a big smile, no? That is our attempt to bring smile on your face.
I agree with that part. That food brings smile. But it's just that I was trying to cut down the food without cutting down the smiles.
I never think like this. Next show, what should we plan on? A gym?
Exercise, walking.
So Samir, it's been a good year, and you got far. People have smiles on their face, and doesn't matter whether you've bought a small cap, large cap, or mid cap. Last couple of years, as long as you participated,
correct.
You are smiling. Do you think the smile will continue now?
I think the smile will continue. Maybe for the small cap guys, the smile might be a little smaller. But in general, it will continue because in the end, people will realize that whatever happens broadly over time, they will do better in equities than they would have done somewhere else. And in absolute, it will still be a good return. So it doesn't literally matter whether you're making 40%. You have to see the alternatives. And against the alternatives, equity has proven to be a great asset class.
ये तो theory है ना?
नहीं, theory नहीं है. Because आपका क्या है कि you have to do regret minimization also. If next year you make 15%, but you say अगर debt में डाले होते 10 होते, that will be also smiling. Then there will be years like this where in small and mid caps you are making much more. But over time, it cannot be like this also all the years. So either you bring down your expectations afterwards, or from today only you imagine that the returns will be good. But this year was exceptional in some sense.
Okay. Now, this is an outreach show where I'm going to just take 2 sheets of questions, lots of questions, and then we will go to our guest also. So, it's a very valid question which is coming from Ajit. And I'll just pop up on your screen so that our viewers can also connect to it. As a retired person, I would like to invest a lump sum amount with SWP for expenses. Should I choose Helios, FlexiCap NFO versus others with a 20-year CAGR over last 10 years? What is the USP?
With a 20% CAGR, okay. So now we didn't have a mutual fund before, so it's difficult to say. But you can search on the net and you'll find we also had something in that range or maybe even better for the last 10 years. But because those guys have it in their mutual fund, maybe 1 or 2 of them, but we would be quite good in that, but how to say? But broadly, in a big picture sense, because my track record has been as a fund manager, so that track record is public and you can search on the net, but we can't tell you about our...
For somebody who wants to start afresh, this is coming from Amit Nai. Thank you for that question, Amit. What should be the first port of call in terms of a scheme selection? Should one start with FlexiCap, small cap, or simple equity diversified scheme?
So if you're absolutely new to equities, then I think FlexiCap is the best. I think the other funds are more supplements to having first invested in equity and then saying I am, for the X percent, 10%, 15%, I want to take higher risk, higher return, and then you go into different things. But FlexiCap is the diversified, go anywhere kind of fund. So for a completely new investor, I think that would be the best. Our selection of FlexiCap did not happen for that reason. Also, that is one of the reasons. But that is because our history of 27 years has been in broadly a FlexiCap mandate. Although it's not technically called that because in offshore fund and previously in mutual fund, there was no such categorization.
So I'll turn to Prasad. Now, Prasad, thank you for joining us. You've given an idea of what you would like to ask Samir, so why don't you ask your question to Samir? You've got 2 questions, I can see.
Right. So, first about Indian economy, like everyone is talking about $5 trillion economy in next few years. But over a period of time, like we have seen, agriculture sector is having say 17% of contribution into it. But if we are going to reach to that level, how agriculture is going to shape up? Because we have not seen much of a development on that side as compared to other sectors.
I don't think that will still shape up. But big picture mein, to reach $5 trillion is not anything other than arithmetic. If we say broadly Indian GDP is growing at say 7% per annum, अब 3.5 है, आप उसको 1.07 into 1.07 करते जाओ, it will become 5 trillion in some 5-7 years. Now, in that 7% real growth, some 2.5% or 2% is agri growth, and the rest is more than 7, so that the weighted average is 7. Now, in that 2% agri growth, I don't think we are doing enough to make that higher growth. उसके लिए you need bigger land piece, you need more mechanization. अभी तो क्या है कि that is absorbing all the people who haven't got jobs. If you make it very efficient, where will those people go? So I think it is also a big picture, not a very planned thing, but a way to absorb many people. And in some sense, you can say that over some 20 years, what is the positive? That people will go from agri to industry, or they'll move from rural to urban. But if they do it too fast, then our urban can't handle. So I don't think, please dream of agri contributing beyond normal to get us to 5 trillion. But 5 trillion is arithmetic. It will reach plus minus a few years. Yeah.
So which all other sectors like which will contribute higher to this?
So in India, it has always been the case that services, India is a services-oriented this thing. So in services, it is financial services, and then consumer services. Consumer services means not the actual consumption of capital, I mean this thing, TV, fridge, but everything else. Hotel also is a service, and then we have IT services, logistics. So those things grow much more than the 7%. And that is why if you see our manufacturing also is not very big, although there is a concerted effort.
Samir, the positioning of the market changes. Like for example, if you look at the Sensex, 1990 में जो Sensex का composition था versus 2020, the composition has changed completely. एक या दो कंपनियां बची हैं. So if India has to become 5 trillion, a leap from Prasad, where do you think the composition of the Nifty will change?
But I think for 5 trillion, you don't need to change the composition. Also, if you see the US, composition अब नहीं change होगा. 90s में अलग बात थी. Their sectors were not listed. There was no private banks, there was no IT, there was no insurance sector, there was no media sector, because they were all state-owned companies. अब नए sector कहाँ से आएंगे? Sector तो यही रहेंगे. कोई कह सकता है artificial intelligence might come. Okay, that in the beginning will be one company and that will be unlisted for many years, or it will be one of our listed companies using AI. But उसमें क्या आप करोगे sector का? So the sector story that way I think is done. Which sector may do well or not do well is different, because that every 3 years somebody will do well. But that sector will be already out there somewhere in our market today. Biotech, these things are, good to say. But there won't be so many companies that, because I just simply look at the US, कि वहाँ पे कौन सा mix change हुआ है, कुछ नहीं हुआ change, वही कोई companies हैं.
So I'll take another question which has come, and this is a question which we've debated and deliberated, but I've never asked you this question. It's a question which is again coming from Namit J. What is the difference in trading and investing? Warren Buffett कहते हैं you should not trade. Rakesh Jhunwala has said that I made my capital by trading. Why is that people lose money in trading and they don't lose money in investing? And should one start trading?
No, वो तो simple है. क्योंकि if you're doing futures, by definition, it is a zero-sum game between the guy who's buying the option and selling the option, or buying the futures and selling the future. Because next month end में तो आपको decide करना है भाई, no third fellow is coming to give you money. So it is a zero-sum game. In zero-sum game, everybody cannot win. And mostly what happens, the smart guy is winning from all the others. तब वो कहते हैं 90% are losing. But that they don't say, which is fair also, कि 10% are making too much money. Because सबके पैसे उन्होंने ले लिए. Because they were planned or they had a model or something. In investing, every year the market is going up, say 13-14%. So आप जो मर्जी कर लो, that pool is going up 13%. Now, in that, the guy who sold, he's not having a loss, he's having an opportunity loss. But usko utna bura nahi lagta. So the guy who bought it, so somebody will make 13% that year, okay, as a combo. Suppose in theory you sold halfway through the year, तो आपके 6.5 बन गए, आपने बेच दिया, फिर नए वाले के 6.5 बन गए, दोनों खुश हैं कि हमारे बन गए. Because there is no actual loss except an opportunity loss. And therefore, in that sense, everybody can be a winner. Because suppose the market was closed and it opened 1 year later 14% higher. सब खुश हैं, हमारे 14% बन गए. इसलिए वो investment वाला जीतता है. एक दूसरे से लड़ाई नहीं कर रहा.
The joy of every time we shoot out with Samir, it's food, and then you meet people, and then, you know, it was not planned, but it just happened there. The Anurag also joins us. He's the founder of Indigo Hospitality, the lovely place where we are coming from. And thank you first for joining us. That's the joy this year, Ye Diwali Muskaan Wali. When food and restaurateurs, they meet, there's always smile on everyone's face. And, you know, we're getting complete feast out here also. Samir, you have a big investment in Zomato. So I'm not getting into stock-specific conversation, but the logic here is that Indians are eating out, and Zomato is in, you know, oligopoly business. So the restaurateurs have a different story to say, that Zomato is hurting our business.
I was not saying they're eating out, but पहले आप बोलो फिर मैं बताऊंगा.
नहीं देखिए ऐसा है. I personally believe that e-commerce per se is a great space to be in, because that is something that can really accelerate the growth of rate of growth. Problem is the current ecosystem that has emerged within the food service sector, aggregation, is very unhealthy. It is all driven by what I call the 3 problematic Ds. That is, you know, discount, discovery, and the delivery price. They take away virtually 40% of your revenue. With that kind of revenue going into them, another 35% in your cost of goods and packaging, you're left with nothing. So this does not impact a large format restaurant, which is more about dining in. But at the lower end of the spectrum, where you are talking about QSRs and cloud kitchens, it is actually counterproductive, the growth of Zomato and Swiggy. So I believe we need them, but we need them with fresher terms of engagement, fresher narrative. Today, if you look at Nikunj, the narrative is discount is the only way to get a customer, retain a customer, and re-engage with customer. I think that narrative needs to change somewhere.
So I would have agreed with him if I saw that Zomato is making a lot of money. ये सब करने के बाद Zomato is making like 100 crore.
But Zomato stock has made a lot of money for unit holders.
Stock has made money, but the company.
वो तो मैंने अच्छे टाइम पे ले लिया, but I'm saying the company is not making money. तो ये सब सर्विस अभी वो फ्री के लिए कर रहे हैं for restaurants.
But do you like this?
So my logic was different. My logic was,
which is when you bought Zomato.
नहीं. I mean, as a concept now, even then maybe, but now that there were so many these QSR guys. And now Zomato has democratized that कि आपको ये 4-5 चेन में जाने की क्या जरूरत है, हमारे पास 100 variations हैं, and that same purchase has been divided into so many guys. So इसलिए the QSR guys are growing nothing, and the Zomato delivery is going whatever 20-30% per annum. Second thing is the traffic is too much. So for people to go to restaurant, come back, 2 घंटे आपके एक्स्ट्रा जाएंगे.
पार्किंग अलग लगती है.
उसमें आप नेटफ्लिक्स में मूवी देख सकते हो, खाना घर आ जाएगा.
पार्किंग चार्ज अलग है जी. You're forgetting the parking charge.
लगता है कि
and service charge is restaurant charge. You don't talk about it.
तो convenience fee तो वो भी ले लेते हैं आजकल.
तो वो टाइम के बदले पैसे ले रहा है आपसे.
मैं वही बोला, उनका एक्चुअली देखोगे, जैसे मैंने 3D बोला ना, उनका एक 3C है, which is positive C's, which is convenience, choice, comfort, बहुत सारी चीजें हैं, पर वो उसकी बात नहीं करते.
तो ए क्या होगा फिर? आपने COD बता दे, A और B भी बता दो मेरे को.
A और B कुछ नहीं, हमें जिंदा रहना है. अब बस करो.
So Samir, at the beginning of the year or same time last Diwali, you took some outsized bets. Zomato, Paytm, they worked out very well for you. So what are the bets for next year?
ऐसे नहीं पता लगता, ऐसे नहीं होता. हमने लास्ट टाइम भी 25-30 बेट ली थी, जो चल गई हैं वो आपको बताई जा रही है.
तो आप कौन सी ले रहे हो? 25-30 तो मत बताओ, 5-6 बताओ.
अब क्या है कि हमारा तो जी हम बड़े ट्रांसपेरेंट, यू नो, आई एम 100% ट्रांसपेरेंट गाय. थोड़े दिनों में हमारा म्यूचुअल फंड का 100% पोर्टफोलियो डिस्क्लोज हो जाएगा आपको. तो उससे ज़्यादा ट्रांसपेरेंसी क्या चाहिए आपको? 1 महीना रह गया सिर्फ.
No, but I mean, forget the names, but let's say looking at the risk-reward ratio, interest rate environment, valuations, anything which is right there, which you think is up for grabs.
No, so you will see them, but basically we are flexible in the sense that at the same time when we have Zomato type stocks, we'll also have stocks which are trading at 5, 7, 8 PE and all that, which could be considered by anybody as 100% value fellows stock, because the market can, or I can handle one stock being very expensive but very high growth, and one being very cheap but no growth but very cheap. So ये दोनों चीजें, there's no mental issue कि I can't handle both in my mind.
Okay, Sonal, and that's such an apt question from Sonal. She is young and she wants to say, वो सब ठीक है mutual fund, but how can she identify, which you identified, HDFC Bank or Asian Paints or a TCS before they become big?
So actually what I have learned is that you are not making money by buying good companies. You are making money by buying normal companies which turned out to be good. Because वो बाद में पता लगना चाहिए अच्छा ये तो बड़ा हीरो है भाई. So for example, I bought let's say Bajaj Finance in 2011. I don't believe that the management of Bajaj Finance would have also believed that they are going to have a 100-bagger or a 1,000-bagger or whatever they've had. No, not from them, they've not had 1,000-bagger, but say whatever, 50, 80-bagger. So the point is, they also would not have imagined. So we also, how could we imagine if they can't imagine? So the idea is कि आप गंदी चीजें छोड़ दो, and from the rest, you wait for them to capitalize on their opportunities. I bought Varun Beverage. अब वो Varun Beverage hit हो गया because एक drink चल गई, Sting. But in 2019 when I bought it, कोई बात ही नहीं हुई थी Sting की ना. उन्होंने मेरे को बोला ना, मेरे को पता था कि Sting भी एक drink है इनके portfolio में.
While we are talking about this multi-bagger thing, yes, probably we cannot tell, but there might be some colors that multi-baggers might have shown over the years. What are those
So
patterns?
that is that एक तो opportunity should look big, that this can go on for 5-10 years. ताकि room में, you know, कि after 1 year you say, okay, now the market has become competitive or the big potential is over. So one, you can say big theme. So big theme, in the past I used themes like private companies competing with government. उसमें क्या था, government market share is say, now it's less, but in the beginning it used to be 100 and the private guys all together are 0. So this can go on for years. So those happened so fast that in media, like Z took over Doordarshan's market share in maybe 7-8 years. So 100% उसके से वो इधर 100% हो गए. Not only Z but all of them. The same thing happened in telecom, Bharti versus the BSNL and MTNL. That was one big theme. अब वो theme play out हो गई है मुझे लगता है in most of the places where the government and private are there. The second theme in today's context could be consumer. That अभी consumer $2,000 पे है. One day they will reach 3,000, 4,000. Then the extra money that they have, they will not spend on food and housing. They will spend. Right now, one of the big themes is that the rich don't care for anything. So anything which is being bought by the rich, उनको कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ रहा कि इकोनॉमी 6% ग्रो हो रही है कि 7% हो रही है. So those themes are big themes. Now इसमें क्या है कि in the stock or the company, उसकी बैलेंस शीट वगैरह ठीक है और वो लास्ट 2-3 साल ग्रो हो रहा है, you can for the moment assume कि चलता रहेगा till something disrupts it. Half of them will not be disrupted. Some of them will be disrupted. Or some other fellow who might be late but will catch up. But if you want like that, but my model is that it should not be bad on any of the 8 factors that we have. That the company should not have a bad theme. It should not have a bad industry. I can tell you what we mean by industry. Should not have bad valuation. Should not have bad next 2-3 years growth. I don't want, 10 year में बड़ा अच्छा है लेकिन अभी 3 साल के रिजल्ट मत देखो. अगर लिस्टेड है तो हम देख ही लेंगे रिजल्ट भाई. अगर वो 4 साल में कोई मुझे आके बोले कि इट्स अ 5 year story, तो मैं कहता हूँ प्लीज कॉल मी 2 years or 3 years. मेरे को तो 3 year story चाहिए.
Prasad, any follow-up questions?
Yeah, one last question, sir. Regarding we know you as a fund manager who is delivering good returns through PMS strategy. So now what
नहीं वो PMS तो आपको पता लगा है. हम तो उससे पहले ऑफशोर फंड में दे रहे थे, उससे पहले अलायंस में दे रहे थे. तो ये वो PMS की बात नहीं है, ये फिलॉसफी की बात है.
So why you want to get into the crowded market like mutual funds and all?
क्या जरूरत है? 46 म्यूचुअल फंड है.
वो ये बेचारे म्यूचुअल फंड वाले कल मैंने सुना सोच रहे थे कि हम क्या करें, ये आ गए हैं.
सही बात है.
हम क्यों फिकर करें? They have to, क्या होता है? One guy asked me, are you worried about the mutual fund? मैंने कहा, why should I be worried? They should be worried. हमें क्या पता? We enjoyed our first round and we became India's biggest. We are not playing for that, but we can be a reasonable player. इसमें क्या objection है? If our performance is good, everything else follows. हमारे portfolio से I have never believed that I am not buying a stock with trade 300 shares. And portfolio going public sometimes helps also, because you will also buy it and make my NAV go up. So portfolio disclosure in the big picture, plus we are competing with others also who have a, by the way, PMS is higher disclosure than mutual fund because every trade is reported.
Oh, is it?
Every trade live.
Oh, yeah, you have to capture it. You have to capture it.
Here, at least you're getting it once a month.
Yeah.
So there is no difference in that. And anyway, 80, 90 or 70%, तो मैं इनको बता देता हूँ टीवी में आके घूम फिर के. नहीं घूम फिर के आपको पता है मेरे पास जोमेटो कब लिया, पेटीएम कब लिया, ये सब तो पता है आपको.
अब अगला क्या लेने वाले पहले बताओ.
सेक्टर तो बता दो.
अब तो सब
ये सब जानना चाहते हैं, ये भी जानना चाहते हैं, ये भी जानना चाहते हैं.
तो
सब जानना चाहते हैं.
घर आके डिस्क्लोजर मिलेगा. मीन पहले क्या, यू आर राइट, पीएमएस डिस्क्लोजर इज अ बिट प्राइवेट, बट टू थाउजेंड्स ऑफ पीपल हु आर इन्वेस्टेड. बट दिस वन इज जस्ट पुट अप लाइक पब्लिकली.
If Samir Arora of 2023 meets Samir Arora of 2000, imagine a much younger version of you. What will Samir Arora of 2023 tell Samir Arora of 2000 if they are meeting at a Diwali lunch?
Okay, so he will say, I would think that पहले हम क्या करते थे, when we were beginners, we used to look at only P&L and not 100% on the balance sheet. फिर भी देखते थे, but not to the extent now. Now I've realized if the balance sheet is okay, अगर growth ऊपर नीचे भी हो गई, तो कभी आपके 5% गिर भी जाएगा stock, but it won't take you to zero. Because I have had at least in 27 years, 5-6 stocks which have gone to zero. Or they have gone to zero, but I may have sold them 50% down. But in the end, they went to zero. Because they were listed, you could walk out. I don't like that anymore, having stocks that go to zero, even if I'm not owning them. It just spoils everybody's mood in our company.
What? Sonal, you have a question?
Yes, I do. It's just a normal fun question. So, okay, so if you had to break the monotony of Dhanteras, what would you buy instead of gold, diamond, whatsoever one buys on Dhanteras?
By the way, diamond has been disrupted. I think diamond is that asset is going to do badly.
It is no longer girl's best friend.
Diamond is not, because this artificial lab-grown diamond,
Right,
you cannot even in a lab show कि कौन से वाला diamond है. अब let us say you know कि आपका असली diamond है, लेकिन मेरा diamond वैसे ही लग रहा है. अब आप अपने गाते रहो गाने कि मेरे पास तो सर्टिफिकेट है, क्या करेगा दूसरा आदमी. When you go to
सर्टिफिकेट लगा के थोड़ा ना घूमो.
तो वेडिंग में जाओगे तो क्या पता लगेगा किसी को. आपने डायमंड लिया होगा, मैंने घड़ी असली ली होगी और डायमंड नकली होगा. अब वो बोलेगा कि घड़ी तो रियल है.
सही बात है.
तो डायमंड भी असली होगा. It's gone. I think over time it's gone.
तो वो तो फिर म्यूचुअल फंड में अप्लाई करता है.
कैसे?
पुराना परफॉर्मेंस अच्छा है, गारंटी नहीं अच्छा आ गया है.
वो नहीं है, वो
नहीं वो तो है.
वो नहीं है. लेकिन उसमें तो आपको एवरीडे एवरीडे मिलती है. बट डायमंड ना लें, उसके बदले हमारा फंड है वो भी डायमंड टाइप ही अच्छा फंड है.
That's such an amazing way to put it.
You know, I just heard, I wasn't aware you invested with Zomato. Was it only the price? Because if you look at their books, there is nothing which is exciting. What made you invest in Zomato? It's a question I would love an answer.
I bought it at 52.
Oh, that was still a good price.
हाँ, very good price. नहीं जी, उसकी बुक अच्छी
जाने को तो 40-42 तक गया था.
वो 42 गया था उसके.
अब Zomato का स्टॉक प्राइस भी ट्रैक करते हो.
या आज जब उसका गिरता है तो कोई आप लोग हमको बुलाते हो. जब Zomato IPO के पहले, I must have done I don't know how many investor calls. I had no role to play. I have no.
I had to ask you whether the restaurant will accept. When the restaurant will accept the discount. I mean that, yeah. अब ये सब होती रहती है बातें. अब
But to answer to his question.
So the question is कि first of all, is that business needed or is it useful? It is incredibly useful. Second thing is that वो beginning में ना many people start these businesses everywhere. In the end, 1 or 2 are left or 2 or 3. So यहाँ पे ये clear था कि third नहीं है. एक और है there was Swiggy, but Swiggy was unlisted and this fellow is listed. If the listed fellow does badly, the unlisted will go to zero. So that was the thing. So and then Zomato had $1 billion in cash. And basically the idea was they were saying that we are stopping our investments in other loss-making businesses that they were making before. And they capped their investment in Blinkit at that time. This was whatever, July, पता नहीं कौन से रिजल्ट के बाद था, या तो जून वाला या सितंबर वाला. So फिर हमने कहा चलो ठीक है, it's worth a shot. So that's it.
तो खाना तो खाओ, Zomato पे नहीं है, यहीं का है.
हमें कोई objection नहीं है.
No, this Ye Diwali Muskaan Wali, and what better Muskaan when you have good company, good questions, a good host, and a lovely food. So Ye Diwali Muskaan Wali, that is the spirit of ET Now and ET Now Swadesh this Diwali. So thank you all very much for being part of the show. May you have a wonderful year ahead. On behalf of everyone from ET Now, wishing you a very happy Diwali. And Diwali may be all about Lakshmi, but we are sincerely hoping and praying that for all of us this year, instead of Goddess Lakshmi, Goddess Saraswati also blesses you. Because then you'll have the power to knowledge, wisdom to choose, and perhaps the joy of compounding with great fund manager like Samir is somewhere you can really benefit from. So thank you very much, and once again, a very happy Diwali.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.